Hello, my friend.
How's it going, my friend?
It's okay. Have you been in a situation before where somebody came to look at what you were doing and give you uh, critiques and or uh, make suggestions, and in your brain you're saying, "Do you even know what I do?"
Oh, yeah, no doubt about that. Because we have this mandate from the state that it has to be we have to be observed, and
Sure,
that makes perfect sense. Just like we have kids do playing tests, will be
sure.
observed. But I got to tell you a true story. My first job was in Throckmorton, and they hired outside sources to come in and do the evaluations.
Did they really?
So yeah,
Third
so it's
party.
kind
Yeah,
yeah, so it's kind of cool. It's just kind of to save time because we had like one principal that was over the high school, junior high, and elementary. I mean, every elementary class was the entire class.
I get
There's
it.
like 17 fifth graders. They were all in one class with one
Sure.
teacher. So, it made sense. But here's where the story goes. I prepared my lesson plan. I had everything ready. I had the kids ready. We knew what time. It was no surprise. They came. At the end of it, he came to meet with me to tell me exactly what was happening. First words out of his mouth, he said, "Oh man, Mr. Lunney, when I do evaluations, man, I wear hearing aids and it just drives me crazy. So I just turn them off." Listen, so you didn't hear a thing that we did? No, no, I just can't stand it,
That's
so it's just
funny.
too much. So my first evaluation, I actually had a pretty good evaluation because he had no idea. He had
You're
no idea
saying
what the band was doing, what I was doing, or anything. So that was my first introduction to evaluation. So it's kind of a
that's
very
great.
sour note, and I've had others that were very good. I think the crux of the situation, my friend, that our band director and choir and orchestra directors, face out there, sometimes your, quote, "official evaluation period" is being done by an administrator that has no musical background whatsoever,
And
and
that's what
some
I was going to ask.
and
Yeah.
sometimes it's being done by a fine arts person or the head band director, orchestra director, who knows exactly what's supposed to happen. So I want to try to give kind of both sides of the story. No matter how thin a pancake, it always has 2 sides. You know what I mean?
That's the
There's 2
first time
sides
I've
to
ever
it.
heard that. That's
Well, that's a
funny.
Dr. Phil thing. You must not be a Dr. Phil
I'm
fan.
not.
He would say that was his quote for Dr. Phil, said, "No matter how thin a pancake, it still has 2 sides," you know?
That's funny. Okay. So, which side do you wanna start with?
Well, I'm gonna go through different topics and kinda give you both sides.
Okay.
So we're gonna do a play-by-play, kind of a John Madden kind of approach to,
Bam! And then the
figuring this out.
commissioner came in.
Yeah.
Wow!
I need one of those illustrators where I can draw with a yellow pen or something. Um, but I just as a generic broad brush, if it's a cluster leader who's in charge of your cluster, you know what I mean? That's in
That
charge
word
of
has
your
been
band.
appropriated in other ways that I can't.
It has it. Stop that, stop that. I'm gonna have to
It's
exert
a
some discipline on
cluster.
you. Now, I could possibly see that written on my evaluation certain days, but other days, hopefully not. But, if it's a person who's a fine arts coordinator or a head band director, head orchestra director, it'll be more centered on the musical product, how you're
Okay.
warming up,
Right.
how you're dealing with kids, how you're dealing with equipment problems, how you're working on tuning, balance, intonation, and that makes sense, doesn't it?
Sure.
Because that's because hopefully you will have the, discipline under control. And usually, I say usually, it seems like if the head director, whatever you wanna call that, fine arts person, is in the room, the kids tend to behave better, but they might not as much for the second assistant principal at a
Right.
larger high school. It's just like, "Oh, that's so and so." They might not even know who it is.
Right.
It's like, I don't know, some strangers back there, who gives a rip what's going on? So they might approach it more in terms of classroom management, discipline, things of that nature. And I'll give you a really good example of that. When I was in this 2A school up by Wichita Falls, I had a evaluation done by my principal who knew nothing about band. And at this time of the career, we had this thing called career ladder. That's what they called it. And
Sure.
if you had good evaluations, you got like a $1,500 check at the end of the semester.
You moved up the rung. Yeah.
You moved up the rung and you got an extra $1,500. And that was a pretty big deal when my salary was 18,500. So
I
that
can
was
see how that was.
a pretty good chunk,
Yeah.
so that was exciting. But in that situation, the he came down and he did my evaluation and he gave me like a score. It was like 1 to 5, with 5 being the best in each domain. And in classroom discipline, he gave me a 2. And I
Okay.
go, "Mr. Sales?" Said, "I don't know what I did wrong." Said, "The class, they were behaved the whole time, weren't they?" And he goes, "Well, yeah, yeah." And they were playing their horns the whole time. Yeah. Well, no one did anything wrong, did they? No, but I didn't have any opportunity to watch you discipline a child.
There
So
wasn't
guess
an NA
so guess what Mike Lunney's plan was for Mr. Sales the next time he came in?
to rip a kid.
Oh, I had 5 kids that I brought into my office and said, "We're gonna play a joke on Mr. Sales." Said, I'd say, "Derek, you're one of those kids. Derek, after we finish the warm-up corral, I want you to stand up with your pencil and walk over to the pencil sharpener and start sharpening your pencil and don't stop. And I'm gonna rip you a new one. And we're between you and I, we're gonna know it's a joke. And I want you to talk back." So I'm gonna go, "Derek, how dare you get up out of my rehearsal and sharpen you've been over there for 5 minutes. What is wrong with you?" And Derek is instructed to say, "Mr. Lunny, we don't really care what you say because I don't do anything on that next piece anyway. I'm only the cymbal player."
I'll
And so
start sharpening my pencil when it's sharp enough.
and then I said, "I'm gonna walk over to you, Derek. I'm gonna get in your face and go, 'You'd better get back there in the percussion section and sit down. And when I say to play, you're gonna play.'" And you're gonna go, "Yes, sir." And you're gonna go back there and sit down. The whole band was in on this. And so we did like 4 examples of misbehavior, and so I could correct them with the band knowing it was all just this big one-act play, and
Sure.
I got a 5. So I got my career ladder check by fooling the principal because he was an idiot. He was an
Uh,
absolute
that is
idiot.
amazing story. I would
Yeah. So and the kids loved it, and we'd
Yeah.
have things like we'd have them ask questions because on the domain of, having the kids involved, he said, "They need to ask more questions." So I did a list of questions and I put it in their folders. So, like, "What is a Q double sharp?" They, "Mr. Lane, what's a Q double sharp?" It's like a G it's like an H double flat. We call those inharmonious notes.
Hearsay.
We just make up terminology. In the march, the trio expectation moment is supposed to be the dramatic resolution of the. And I would just go over and the kids would just all nod. I said, "Now everyone has to nod their head
Ooh.
like I'm like Einstein and giving you the secrets to the universe." And the principal's like, "Oh my gosh, this class is amazing." I did not answer one musical question the whole period. Now, administrators nowadays might be a little more adept.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe, fine arts coordinators certainly would. I wouldn't
Guess
pull
say it
that on
wouldn't
a
work with your fine arts coordinator.
now he'd go, "There's no such thing as an H double flat and a Q sharp." You know, so it's you just had sometimes you gotta manipulate the system, but we have the system. So now let's jump into it.
Okay.
One aspect of this is gonna be student achievement.
All right.
To a fine arts coordinator, student achievement is how we play our instruments, what ratings we get at contest, how good our concert was. Sometimes more importantly, how many kids are feeding up into their program from our program?
That makes
That
sense.
can be that
Yeah.
can be student achievement where a principal couldn't care less.
Right.
That's the other principal's problem over at the high school. So I don't care if they're in band when they're a freshman, but your fine arts guy probably will care. They're more geared in the fine arts realm to the music education. Um, the principal, it's more discipline, teamwork.
Right.
So if you've got to gauge your lesson plan according to who's there for student achievement, because if that's a domain on your assessment tool, then that's what they're going to use. Because at one time we did the career ladder ones, and then it went to something else, and then went into PDOS, and now it's T tests. And I think they're actually rolling out a new plan coming out, and I don't understand it at all because I'm not involved. But whatever the system is, I've noticed one thing between all the systems: the domains are almost all exactly the same. It's just a different lobbyist who's pumped a certain amount of money into representatives' pockets in Austin. So therefore, they adopted this new plan,
Sure.
and we're all stuck with it. So we've got to make it worth our while. Okay. So think of that first. Student achievement. If it's an administrator, what does that mean? If it's a fine arts coordinator or my head band or orchestra director or choir director, what does that mean for them?
Can I
Okay.
can I ask you a question real quick? Because
Sure.
and I don't want to turn this into a soapbox moment necessarily, but knowing what your system is, if I'm hearing you correctly, you need to know what the system of evaluation is going to be. Do most teachers have access to that? They know that before the evaluation
Yes.
happens?
It's all verbatim on the web pages. You can copy off the blanks.
Okay.
You know what I mean? That the administrator will be filling out electronically on their iPad.
So, uh, how do I say this? It's the same thing in any evaluation. If you know what the criteria is, it's probably smart in your best interest, whether you're obviously gonna be some editing here. It's in your best interest to know what that is, what the evaluator is gonna be looking for,
Correct.
and make your classroom have those elements that day.
Yes. I mean,
So I'm
you'd think that'd be common sense, wouldn't you? But there's so many band directors I know out there that I just teach the way I teach, and they're just gonna have to get used to it.
right.
But then my response to them is always this: when you go to UIL concert contest,
That's where I was headed.
how
Yeah.
many rubrics are on the right-hand side of the page? And they'll know that.
Yep.
You'll say, "How many?" "There's 15. There's 3 in each box." "Yes, there are." "What's the highest rubric?" "All the time." And then it's like, "Are consistently." It's not all the time, it's consistently, and I forget the exact order, um, some sometimes, frequently. It has all these words that you do for tone and technique and musicality, and those are the 3 domains. So we spend untold amounts of times as a band director, choir, orchestra studying that because we want our marching show or a concert program to emulate those rubrics, but we want it to be great music. But I promise you, if it emulates all those rubrics, it will be great music. You
Right.
know, if you do all those, but they think it's not important on their
But at the
teacher
same time,
evaluation.
they fully embrace the concept that their evaluation or their rating, whichever word you wanna use
Correct.
today, is going to reflect what you just said.
Yes,
Everybody
and
knows that.
the other mistake they make is they know this, but they don't think about it. Your evaluation at contest happens in like 15, 20 minutes.
Right.
The evaluation as a teacher happens in 15, 20 minutes. But they teach their class on the scope of the whole year.
Right.
They present their contest program knowing I've got 15 minutes to convince this group of people to evaluate me at the highest level in the rubrics. Therefore, we can get the rating that we've been working for. And it's not that ratings are everything, but we take a lot of time to do that. Why don't they do that with the T tests and the PDOS and the career? Why don't they do that? That was always to me, it made sense. I just caught the blanks and then I would film, video myself teaching, and then I'd give myself my own evaluation. Isn't that
Right.
crazy? That's
Right, right.
Mike Lunney OCD, okay? And I'd give my own deal. I'd give my well, actually, in, classroom management, I was about a 3, and, as far as, student achievement, I don't know, I just talked half the period, so that'd probably be about a 2, and then I'd start to correct those, and I'd set out my lesson plan to where I could do that
And
correctly.
even if you didn't listen, I realize we're talking a broad group of people who might be listening in different situations, but I would even think it would be beneficial to have somebody else who you trust and who will give you valid feedback. "Hey, man, why don't you come use this list of evaluators and tell me how I did? If
Yes.
you were evaluating me, how would I score?"
Yes, and I've had it kind of a double duty, which was kinda cool, where a director might say, "Hey, you're on your way to such and such town. Can you drop by and listen to my march during 5th period and tell me if you think this'll work for contest?
Right.
And also, can you kinda give me just a sketch of an evaluation because 'cause I'm getting evaluated next week?"
So while you're there, yeah,
Yeah, so I just kind of listen to the march and say, "Well, let's try this one," or say, "No, this is gonna be fine." So just rewrite a couple parts, and then it's like, "In terms of your evaluation, here's gonna be your really strong points. Here's the points you're gonna have to work on because I know you can do this. You just didn't do it today.
right,
And if you don't do it the day of, they think you don't do it." Because again, I love saying this, a quiet part out loud. Only the lucky ones have administrators in their band halls and music halls consistently.
right.
Most of us, we see them that one time in our band hall. And I'm not throwing them under the bus. They're extremely busy individuals. So we don't have time to show them what we do in a sequence of a year. We have 20 minutes. So we'd better cover all those domains in 20 minutes.
So, man, I'm gonna let you go in just a second, but you just keep pushing these buttons.
No, this is all good stuff. Even if
Is
we
it
don't get to
not
something on my notes, it's fine.
is it not in my best interest then to cultivate a relationship with administrator if I know that person is, and I'm not talking politics. I'm talking really get them down to my band hall, get them in, to see my group and see how we work because I do think that there's gonna be a better tendency of a favorable, um, evaluation if they know you more than just 15 minutes a year.
Yes.
Did I ask
And
that well? Did you
you
understand
did.
that?
In fact, you're jumping ahead in my notes, but I'm gonna go with you.
Oh, okay.
We need to focus in when we're looking at fine arts coordinators versus administrators, we don't have to educate our fine arts person, our head band director, but we do need to educate our administrator. We need to, at other times, we need to find a time to go in and just explain how our band program works. We need to explain to them why we do things a certain way. Something as simple, and this worked really well for me, kind of a little hack to throw out there. Once a month, at least, I would send out a composite email to all my administrators from all my campuses and all my school board members and my band staff. That's a lot of people,
I guess
and my
very.
band parent officers, but it would discuss everything done that month according to solo and ensemble, winter guard contest, things we were successful in, that we got better, and we didn't win this contest, but we got this much better,
But look
and
how
the
much
kids.
progress we made, yeah.
Yeah, and administrators love that because it doesn't kill a bunch of time, and what it did for my administration more than anything, they could read through it quickly, and they could, if wanted to, they could respond. Said, "Oh, well, I didn't even know we did Winter Guard. What is Winter Guard? Ah, yeah, can I come down and talk to you one day? Yeah, come down 2 o'clock Tuesday."
Cool.
And I'd go down there and say, "Well, winter guards, like, the flags we have in marching season and rifles and things we throw." And, because you have to talk on their level because
Sure.
they don't understand your process. And this is kind of like lifting weights for athletes to get ready for football season. We do winter guard, so the guard's ready for marching season. And so they compete as an entity without the band so they can prepare and lift weights and do that. So they don't really lift
Right.
weights, but they understand that analogy.
Strength and conditioning.
Yeah, strength and conditioning, and that's what I always joke, the coaches say, because they thought all we did was marching band. They'd always say, What do y'all do after marching season?" And I'd always tell them, "Well, we do, strength and conditioning, lift weights." I don't know, so we just get ready for the next marching season.
That's great.
And most of them go, "Oh, okay." They'd walk off, they just hook, line, and sinker,
So
you know?
takeaway, as I jump the shark there, the takeaway is, the more you can educate your administrator outside of the evaluation period, probably the better the evaluation is gonna go for everyone.
Yes. Invite them to things, but all this is a really important point, I think. Probably the most important point of all this with evaluations. Invite your administration to everything you do, but always put a disclaimer at the bottom of their private invitation as an email that says, "I totally understand how busy you are, and if you don't have time to come to this particular event, I understand completely. I know that you support our program."
Right. Thank
You
you for
know
supporting our program.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you know what? If you do it that way, you'll tend to have more principals show up,
Right.
and if they do show up, make a big deal. The middle of my spring concert, I had band because it's a big crowd in a big school, and I'd have band parent officers scout out all the admin, and they'd slip me a note, like between tunes. And I'd
Right.
go, "I'd like to recognize the following administrator for our assistant superintendent in charge of transportation is Mr. Craig Bessett. And let's have a round of applause for him." We'd make a big deal about it. And, everyone likes to be recognized. And the worst thing you can do is have an administrator take his time out of his busy schedule to come watch your little band thing, being sarcastic, the little
I got it.
band
I
thing.
got it.
And then they leave and going, "I don't think one person even noticed I was here." It's like
Right.
visiting a church as a visitor, and
Yeah.
not one person says hello.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
So that's
I can
gonna
see
that's
that.
probably the most important thing I can throw out there,
You
you
know,
know?
and I'll just compliment that, I hope, by saying, remember the saying, everybody loves to hear their name.
Yeah,
The thing people love to hear most is their own name. And that's not an egotistical thing. It's just a recognition.
yes, and the closer the administration is to you as far as superiority, the better it is for them to hear their name at a concert when there's a problem with a kid,
Right.
because that parent immediately kinda goes, "Man, Mr. Besant shows up at every concert." And that's
Yep.
who we're having the parent conference with.
Right.
It's Mr. Lunney, Mr. Besson. So they know there's 2 adults in there that care about the children and care about the music program instead of this unknown entity that's some kinda FBI, law and order, or detective that's gonna, shine a light in their face and, get after them. So it it just helps in all avenues on that, you know? As far as collaboration, the next thing, this is something that's hard to do, and I did this a lot, and man, it was a pain. Get on committees. The director's ability to work effectively with other teachers, staff, administrators, including other fine arts teachers and those in other departments. You know, if they need someone on the district site-based planning committee and, you know, the principal always shoots out that email, "Hey, man, I've gotta fill this committee. It's a state need. We're gonna meet this many times during the year. I need some people to volunteer for this." Take a deep breath, bite your tongue, walk down to the office and say, "Mr. Besant, I'm your man." Said, "Sign me up for the district site-based committee meeting." Plus, as a sidelight, you kinda get an inside track when all of a sudden they
Right.
start talking, "Hey, we're gonna be passing a bond here in about 5 years," and, you know, so, "Oh, that's not public knowledge, is it?" "No, not at all." "Well,
Right.
let's talk about our performing arts center." You know,
Yeah.
so it's good to do that, to get on those committees. The principal will see you as the godsend. My band director friends out there and music teachers will, this'll appeal to their heart. How many times are you looking for a new band parent vice president or a band parent treasurer and nobody steps forward?
Right.
And you're on the phone begging parents to fill that position because it's not that it's they don't think it's unimportant. They just don't want anything else on their calendar. Man, if you walk in the principal's office and knock on the door and go, "Sir, put me down, site-based committee, district, and campus for both those if you would." You know, or they're starting to do a bond issue, "Put me down for the bond issue." "Well, Mr. Lundy, there's nothing music or fine arts involved on the bond issue." "Doesn't matter."
Yep.
Said, "I know you just need a position filled, and I'll read the notes, and I'll do what I need to do, and best yet, I hate to say this, I don't know if you want public knowledge of this, but it's always good to ask the admin if you're on one of those committees, is your opinion.
Sure.
How can I rubber stamp this for you? Because I
Well,
do not want to disagree with you in a committee meeting. I want to know that you want a new elementary gym.
yeah.
If he tells me I really don't want, okay, I can speak up on that. So I mean, it sounds
Or if they
really
say, "There's
political.
probably some other things
Yeah,
that I would
yeah.
put ahead of that."
I think we probably need a bigger cafeteria at the middle school than we need an elementary gym at this stage of the game. And I can repeat what he needs to say as a participant and not as the leader of the committee. So I know that sounds really political and like making deals or whatever, but you're just helping a man or a woman get through their dang job.
Right.
You know?
Like you wish somebody would help you. But I
Yes.
also think that let's do psychology for a minute. If you want to be perceived as a person who's respected and who is actively involved in this district, the more times they see you outside of the band hall, the more likely that is to happen.
Yes. You're
And by the
exactly
same
right.
token, if you are a person who willingly gets involved in things other than music, I think that the reciprocal of that is you'll be pleasantly surprised how many people get involved in your music from outside sources in trying to help you.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
I mean,
uh,
something as little as we had a little league team go into the playoffs on the way to the World Series, and a band parent called me and said, "Hey, can you?" It was during the summer. "Can you get the drum line together and play our send off?" What a pain in the butt.
tracking everybody down, getting the
But we did
instruments
it.
out. Yeah.
But we did it. Not one person on that anything you can do to gather those poker chips, you know, but and to be seen outside the band hall, still maybe as a function of the band, but maybe just going to a JV football game
Yep.
or being on a committee, or I helped every once in a while because I was one course away from a mathematics degree in college. And I didn't take the last course because I didn't wanna have to teach math because I knew they'd see it on my transcript. But I would help with number sense because number sense was my big deal.
That
So in
got better
band
as you went along there. I
yeah,
tell
it
you.
did. My college director told me that. I go, "Yeah, I'm gonna finish, and I'm gonna have a trumpet performance, a theory degree, music education. I'm gonna have my math degree too, because I did computer science for 2 years." He goes, "No, don't do that."
Get
He
ready to
goes,
teach math.
yeah, do everything but the last would do not be certified in mathematics.
To
And so I'd
some
have the number sense team come to the band hall because that was what I loved in high school. I was on the number sense team. How do you
okay.
multiply 2 4-digit numbers in your head? You know, things like that. So I
Sure.
loved it. But they saw me in a different light. The kids saw me as not just the band director.
Right.
It was someone who helped them in math, and other kids saw it. So, yeah, I mean, we could do a whole podcast on trying to assimilate yourself
But
within
my
the
point
entire
is,
school.
don't avoid that stuff because you're the band director.
Yes.
You're gonna
And
make your program better if you're one of those volunteer people.
yeah, now on the other side of that spectrum, I sat in a meeting with my middle school principal, my middle school band director, and myself when the middle school principal looked at the middle school band director and said, "You need to know that this world does not revolve around your band hall."
Yep. It's
And I'm like, "Oh, that hurts.
okay, say,
Oh, that hurts," because it's the truth. My
yeah,
band hall is not the center of the educational universe. I am merely the planet Pluto.
right.
I'm as far on the outskirts as you can be and I used to be a planet, now I'm a
You're saying,
dwarf now.
am I
Yeah,
even a planet?
yeah, now I'm like a dwarf planet, I think, as I call I think that's the politically correct term for it, a dwarf planet. So I've gotta remember that if there's an academic meet, my principal does not care about my jazz band run through to get ready for my jazz band concert that night. Those kids are gonna be doing academics because 'cause they're gonna
Sure.
be going to an academic meet the next day.
So listen,
So,
Mike,
take it
I
for
know
what
that
it's worth, man.
I'm talking to a certain segment of our audience when I say this, but I see tons of uh, music educators who are also UIL sponsors, who also take kids to the math meets, who
And a lot
also
are
do one
one-act
act play.
play. Yeah.
Right.
Isn't that
But
cool?
but my point being is their programs are pretty strong and not suffering. They have a wider audience with the kids. They
You
have
just
a
froze
bigger
up.
voice. Okay, well, tell me
It
when it unfreezes.
yeah, it's even the audio is starting to chatter.
Okay, tell me when it's back.
Okay.
But I think a band director does himself a disservice by isolating.
It's
We have
still
all
it's still freezing.
oh, man. Okay,
I'll tell you when it's good.
okay.
Might take a
But
while.
the only way for me to it just now gave me the sign, so it'll probably click back in pretty quick.
Well, it's good right now.
The only way for me to know that is to keep talking.
Yeah.
But, I think we do ourselves a disservice if we isolate ourselves to our speciality and look down on everything else. We create an advantage, and we don't even know it, whether that's through recognition with the students, recognition with other teachers, when we take on things like, uh, the journal, the copywriting stuff, the UIL events,
Mhm.
the mathematics, the one act plays, we're only broadening our scope within our student body
Yes.
and allowing them to see us as more than that eccentric, goofy music teacher.
Yeah. Yeah,
No
you're
offense.
right. Hey, I'm with you. I live the life. I think the best compliment I had was when a superintendent said, "For a band director, you're almost a normal person."
You're almost normal.
You're almost a normal person. I said, "I'll take that as a compliment." He said, "It is a compliment." But yeah, you're exactly right. They need to see you in that aspect, especially even with talking fine arts coordinators. Those middle, like 3A, 4A schools that have fine arts coordinators, a lot of times they have all the UIL academics under their umbrella.
Right.
So you're killing two birds with one stone. You're solving a
Yeah.
problem for your boss and you're assimilating
Cultivating
yeah,
favor. Yeah.
cultivating, yeah, favor with the students where they see you in a different light, okay? Another thing is student engagement and retention, um, and we've talked about this a little bit, but it's, to an administrator, it's more, I gotta make sure I satisfy the P's and the state requirements that these kids have to have this much fine arts credit, and so that's their thing, so you've gotta watch out because sometimes they'll use it and I hate to say this to my poor old choir directors out there, because there's no financial investment with an instrument, they'll tend to use it as a dumping ground, and that's a battle
Right.
for our choirs, especially in the 3A, 4A realm. 5A, 6A, not as much. That's kind of a broad brush I'm painting with, but they don't deal with it as much, but man, it's kind of brutal. They throw them in the ag classes and choir so they can,
Or
you
art.
know
Yeah.
so here's this wonderful choir director trying to teach their rear off, and they've got kids in there that just want to get their one semester of fine arts or whatever, and they just come and go. So that'd be a whole nother podcast. But that's the administrator approach to it.
Right.
For the fine arts coordinator or supervisor, it's more how many of your kids are feeding up? How many of your kids stay to be seniors? How many of your kids, even to another level of steroids, how many of your kids go and play in a college band?
Right.
If every kid's so burned out that they don't even touch their horn again when
Is
they
this the end of their
graduate.
musical career? Right.
Yeah, or you have 12, 13 kids, or you have, like, 10 kids out there that are now band directors,
Yeah.
and they come from the Mike Lunney coaching tree. You know what I
And
mean? That
I
that's
do.
that's a cool thing, for a fine arts coordinator to look at and go, "We kinda need to help him out and give him some help over there because
Sure.
he's doing some good stuff." So, I'll just throw that out, and that's a tough battle, my friends,
Right.
to kinda keep that thing going. But you gotta kinda communicate the core value of your program, how it benefits the entire school and community, not how it contributes to your ego. I
Right.
don't know how many band directors I've heard. Some had, if you catch this out there and you're listening to it, those ones that have the DR period before their name that are teaching in public schools,
Right.
they tend to be a little more about what does this do for me? And the whole world's against me. And I don't understand why the entire school doesn't revolve around me and my band hall. And that's another broad brush, but we're all nodding our heads in agreement. You know, um, we've seen the situation. I'll probably get some blowback on that. I'll probably have some because I've got some good friends that fall in that category, and I've had that discussion. So I'm just talking about them in public now. I won't say their names. Okay, but they need to spend more time really cultivating those relationships with speaking at the Rotary Club and the Lions Club, and helping out at the basketball tournament, taking up tickets because you're helping the Lions Club basketball tournament.
Right.
Just little things here and there. Okay. Um,
It's kind of a white tower thought.
Yeah, yeah, and, the more classes you take and the more degrees you have, the more and I understand why. I actually do respect that because they put more time into their education than I have. And
Sure.
so I could see why they expect a little more attention and respect. I don't think that's necessarily always a bad thing.
Sure.
They like to knock heads musically with other doctors, but it's like a team EA. If I have a heart attack, there's a lot of doctors that are useless to me in
Can
the
you say
exhibit hall.
you're not the doctor I need?
You are not the doctor I need. My son's on speed dial. He's actually a doctor. Said, "Get away from me. I don't need to know about Gregorian chant."
That's
Yeah. So it's just a funny offshoot there. And again, showcasing student achievements, whether it's board recognition, like I mentioned earlier, a big email every month. For all I know, some might just delete it. You know, I would always schedule once a month a lunch with one school board member.
Oh, well, okay.
And that way we'd go to Chili's and I would just sometimes we never talked about the band. Yeah,
Right.
just enough to cultivate a relationship where when I had to go in front of the school board and I needed $30,000 for this electronics we were gonna buy, there was a little more nodding of, "Well, Mike's a pretty good guy. I don't think he'd lie to us."
Right.
But, trust and verify. I remember being told, "I know you're not gonna lie to us, but if you ever cross us, you're gonna be filling out forms in triplicate to buy a clarinet reed."
That's funny.
I've been told that before. They
That's
said,
funny.
"I understand completely. I will not cross you." Said,
Right.
I'm buying what we need. I'm not buying gold-plated flutes or anything."
Right.
Okay? And another one, be proactive in seeking feedback because at the end of your evaluation, there's a pre-conference where they talk to you before they evaluate, and there's a post-conference where they talk to you after they evaluate. And then at
Okay.
that, be willing to accept because I know so many teachers, not necessarily band directors that I know about, but they'll just argue with the principals. Why are you that'd be like me sitting up in front of the 3 judges at UIL or state marching with 5 judges and taking time to argue with them.
Right.
What benefit is that? Does that make me look smarter? No.
I'm
It
gonna
just
have to call
pisses
BS on
everybody
that.
off. Yeah, yeah, yeah. This isn't a basketball game where I can get called a technical and get thrown out of the stadium, So with those principles, it's best and, it's hard to do. You just have to bite your tongue, say, "Okay, I'm gonna work on that," and then take notes and set up your next lesson plan to figure it out. Now you talked about cultivating relationships. Um, so I wanna uh kind of close on this because I had some things about the different systems, but that's not that big a deal. T-tests, all these guys know T-tests.
Right.
If you cultivate a good enough relationship, now I'm probably going to get some guys in trouble with this, so I have to whisper it. No,
Uh,
my last 5 years at Wiley, I never had one evaluation where they stepped foot in my classroom. We would talk, and I'd
right.
go, "Hey, my evaluation's on Friday night, right?" When you see the band march, that's my evaluation. I've been here 15 years, okay? And said, "If you wanna come evaluate me in the classroom, that's perfectly fine," and they'd kinda look around and go, "How about if I just fill it out and put it in your box?" So they
Yeah.
fill out, put it in my box. I wouldn't even look at it because it doesn't at that time, it didn't have anything to do with pay. So I would
Right.
just take it out, sign it, and put it back in their box. So that was my evaluation. Now, did I get feedback? Yes. More important than that stupid document. They'd go, "Hey, we think the band should play more during fourth quarter." Now, from a random person in the crowd, that might be an insult. From my high school principal, I better take that into consideration.
Right.
So let's have the percussion play more, have the band play a little more. Let's show a little more spirit, guys. And we always push this a whole nother tangent, but it's cultivation. We always push the point that for the band, a certain amount of them want to be excited at the football game. Another portion are just purebred musicians that's just a pain in the butt to have to sit in the stands to wait for halftime.
Right.
But we pushed upon them the idea that you've got to fake it till you make it because this is our social community work. We've got to do this. Our job is to be a spirit group. And
Right.
if you will do that correctly, we'll have more money for state marching
You
contests.
see.
We'll have charter buses, because the community loves us.
Yep.
But if you just sit on your hands and just don't participate, it's going to blow back on all of us, you
So let
know.
me let me throw this thought at you, Mike, though. You're talking about the last 5 years, but frankly, number 1, your culture becomes obvious, with
Mhm.
longevity,
Good or bad, it's
and
obvious.
your evaluation was probably more fair than a 15-minute sit down for them to say, and let's cross over to some of our other conversations, or other episodes that we've talked about. He's not sending kids to me every day for discipline.
Mhm.
He has a great reputation among the student body. That program is a valid, viable, awesome thing. He shows up and supports us at football games, pep bands. He represents us well in the community. He represents us well in his region, music region.
Yeah.
The
Results.
Right, the results are great. Uh, and he's not somebody that I'm constantly going, "Oh god, here we go, Lunney again." You know what I
And
mean?
yeah, and you wanna know another quiet part out loud? And I know I'm gonna get blowback on this. If they want to keep you, they will give you a high evaluation no matter what you're doing during that 20 minutes.
Right.
If they want you to leave, they will give you a low
No
evaluation no
matter how
matter
good it
what you're
was.
doing.
Yeah.
And that's a tough one to swallow, but I can't prove that, but I've seen it too many times. You could go in there and just talk to one kid for that 20 minutes on a snare solo, and the rest of the band just sit there on their hands. And if they want to keep you because they think you're doing a good job from the rest of the year, oh, he's at least a 4 or 5 in every domain.
Right. And
It's
I
the
guess
it's the truth.
my point is, again, you're validating what I'm saying, because they don't base your, reputation in their mind on that 15 minutes. They see what you do every day, and especially over a number of years.
Yes, but where it's really important to make sure that works well in the evaluation is when it's your 1st year in
Right.
and
Yeah,
your
yeah.
2nd year in.
I get it.
You don't have your street cred yet.
So I guess what I'm working towards is, hey, if you're just getting into some of these, but here's where here's something to look forward to. Do it right from the get-go, and after a while, everybody perceives you as a 4 or a 5.
Yeah, and they'll give you what they whether they wanna keep you has nothing to do with the evaluation after a certain
Right.
number of years. And I'll tell you what, be professional in all your, emails and how you treat people, and if you make a mistake and blow it, you gotta step up. I think the example to kinda tie this up at the end, my very first year at that job I was at for 19 years, Miss Paula Bull, who's my son's and he was like a 4-year-old at the time.
Yeah.
When he was in high school, that was his favorite teacher and Miss Spears because they were biology, chemistry. She was in charge of Meet the Bulldog.
Okay.
Tough day in the band hall. She comes in, says, "Oh, I've changed the schedule. We're gonna need the band to do this and the band to do this." And that's what they've always done. I lost it. I chewed her out.
Yeah.
She was a tenured teacher. Said, "You have no business coming in this band hall telling me what to do. I'm the director of bands, and we'll play what we wanna play at Meet the Bulldog." And she just kinda very mature person, she just kind of nodded her head and left. She never went to the principal. Think about that. My first thing would been go to the principal, right?
Right.
"Hey, that guy's a jerk down there." So about 30 minutes later, I went, "Oh, crap."
That
So I
was
went
wrong.
down to the biology room and I go, "Mrs. Bull," and her husband was a principal at Abilene High. Said, "Miss Bull, I apologize. Said it's been a really hard day in the band hall. I took it out on you, and I hope you can see to forgive me. I know that was unprofessional of me to put you in that situation because a true apology apologizes for your behavior. It acknowledges their pain. And then you have to tell them what you're going to do to make it better, which was, please give me that schedule. Tell me exactly what you want played and when, and I will do it. Meet the Bulldog is your show." And from that point on, we were good friends.
Cool.
And to this day, my son, because he was a chemistry biology major at Tech for his undergrad and his pre-med
Uh-huh.
because of Mrs. Bull,
Oh, wow.
you
That's
know?
awesome.
So that was when he was 4 years old, when the apology happened. So a lot of life goes by, and all it takes sometimes is admitting a mistake, going in and apologizing correctly. And I just want to hammer this home. Apologizing is not, "Sorry, I was an idiot," or not saying anything until someone finally forgets it, because they don't
Nobody
forget it.
forgets. Yeah.
Nobody forgets. Go down there and give a true, proper apology, hat in hand. You know, "I'm so sorry. This is what I did. This is the pain it caused you. This is the unprofessional means in which I did it. Here's I'm going to make up for it by doing it this way in the future. And I just hope that somehow you can forgive me for being so unprofessional." If you cover those bases, then 99 times out of 100, they're going to not bow up to you. They're going to go, "Appreciate you apologizing." Because haven't you been on the other side of that before too?
Absolutely.
When someone's come up and said, Mr. Lunney, I just need," usually it's a kid, "I just need to apologize. I was late to band today, and I know you marked it down as a tardy, and I'll take my punishment, but here's what happened, and I'm not going to do it again, and here's what I'm going to do to make it happen different," you know? And so I could go on that point forever, just as far as professional manner in which you approach
I say
life.
you just sparked, and as we wrap this one up, we need to have a podcast because I don't know that the world, and it's nobody's, I'm not picking out a generation A, millennial. I'm not doing that, but I'm saying the world in general doesn't A, know how to apologize correctly, B, doesn't know how to be gracious when they accept an award. That would be a great professional
It would be.
conduct.
It
Professional
would be.
conduct. All right, man. Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you that uh, I'm going to ask you one last question, Mike. I don't want to make this longer.
The answer is no. Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I thought I was talking to my son.
Is it? I think that so many times we consider an evaluation drudgery. And if we would just change our perspective to some of the things we talked about today, what an opportunity
Yes.
to sell your program and to tell your administrator, look how this program, not our program, affects and crosses over into the rest of this student body in a positive way.
Mhm.
And just flip a switch in our head that nobody's, they have to do this. They probably don't want to do this. They're
Yeah.
probably not down in the office
Oh,
going, I can't wait to go evaluate the director.
yeah. I've never heard, anyone say, "Man, today I get to do evaluations." It's about as exciting as the old playing test for as a band director. "Oh my god, I gotta listen to 35 trumpets today, do their line." So you're absolutely correct.
And so
Lord
my
help
last
us.
thought here is if we'll spend our time working our classroom management plan and doing all the positive things that we are doing with our program, keep an open mind that we're not the sun that everything's revolving around, but we're part of the structure revolving around the sun
Right.
and work together. If we just do the right things every day, evaluations are probably not a big deal.
Yeah, what a concept. Isn't that great? If the kid just plays their horn correct every day, then the playing test is not a problem.
Right.
Isn't
If
that crazy?
okay.
But people
So
forget. Maybe a reminder will help, and maybe they'll just fast forward through and say, "Oh, he's an idiot. I'm not gonna do this." But hopefully they'll get a couple of nuggets out of there.
cool. Appreciate you, brother.
Hey, you bet. It's been fun.
Let's talk again soon.
All right. Sounds good, man.